Just trying to get the cool. So my thing was like A to Z sketch, and I'm going to be sitting down just because everything's on here. I'd like to stand up. So it's pretty much just going through every letter. It's not going to be comprehensive. It's just going to give you a nice little overview, something that relates to A and B and C and so on. So before I get into that, what Sketch is just, well, are you guys familiar with Sketch? Yes, 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 no, no, no. Okay. So Sketch is if Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Fireworks, when that sort of existed, and InDesign, if they all had a weird baby, it would sort of look like this. It's pretty much just vector-based graphics program, and has a lot of nice little features that make things faster. Best way to put it. And it is only Mac only. So, but some of the same stuff, like some of it applies for like developing if you have to do any kind of project and someone has a sketch project. I can't help. So what I'm going to do before I get into A is when you create a new document, you can do new from template, which is nice, and it has like icons, material design if you want to do a Google Android app, and then web design. So what's nice with these, it pre-fills and gives you a lot of the UI elements that you usually have to like find and possibly regrade. It's just all right there, which is handy. But I have already done everything, so it's great anything from scratch. So the first letter is A. So artboards. So with art, are you guys familiar with artboards with Illustrator and all that fun stuff? Those aren't familiar. What artboards are?
Speak to this side of the
room. So with artboards, it's a way to just contain things that you want. Either it could be a screen or icons, however you like. And to create a new artboard, you can go up to here like Insert and create an artboard. But what I'll probably be doing for most of this, I'm just going to be using keyboard commands because I don't know how long this is going to go for. So just to save time. So when I press A, I get on the right-hand side different options of pre-configured artboard layout, sizes. So I could go in here and then draw my own little artboard so I can then create something on it. Or I press A, I can be like, oh, I want an iOS device. I want to make sure I have an iPhone 6 or 5C or however you like. And then you don't have to look it up online or anything like that, which is handy. Another cool thing is, let's say if you have an element already, like this signage thing, and I didn't put it on artboard. Sketch is just like an infinite canvas, like there isn't really any boundaries, which is sometimes fun and sometimes it gets out of hand. So what I can do is I can select it and then press A to get my artboard menu up, and then I can just create an artboard around the selection, which is handy. And with artboards, you know, on here on the left, it's sort of set up on the right-hand side is contextually based. So whatever I'm clicked on, it then gives you a menu that relates to that. So I'm right now clicked on that. So that is like the artboard, and I renamed it, and then everything within that is contained within that artboard. So if you notice on the right-hand side, it changes depending, like right now I'm on text, folder, artboard. So with this, you can export the artboard or have a background color that you set so they aren't a default white. And then you can adjust the size and width and what have you. So that's artboards. So B, so with any kind of vector-based program, you have like Bezier curves, Booleans, and basic shapes. Essentially, that's how you make stuff. So with Bezier curves, are you guys familiar with Yes, cool.
You got something.
Yeah.
Oh, Bezier. Could you repeat that again?
Yeah.
How do you say it?
Bezier, I believe that's the official title. So with these, there's a vector tool which is V, and that's how you create your own little lines with Bezier curves. So I can make a shape. So right on over here, you can change how the nodes act. So right now I'm on this one that's selected, and you can come over here and click straight, which would then just make it a straight line. Mirrored makes like these guys go in opposite ways. Disconnected, same thing but different. But a cool thing is you can press 1, 2, and 3 to toggle between those. Because there's another way to do it. So let's say right now if I have it mirrored with this curve, I can come in here and double click it, and it changes it to straight, and then double click it again and goes to mirrored. So it really depends on what feels right in the moment. But the 1, 2, 3, 4 thing is really handy. And then Booleans are just here with union, subtract, intersect, and difference. That's just how you combine shapes or subtract one shape from another. Intersect is like the intersection of those two. And then difference is...
I was just so used to true and false. I was really curious about
Right.
Yeah. So with that, you can get, the reason why you possibly want to do that is if you want to simplify things, instead of having like 20 circles all around, you're like, oh, that could just be one single shape instead of having it be like 30 different layers. But also with this is it gets a bit weird if you have an object such as this circle and I flipped it over or rotated it, and I don't know 100% of the time why this happens, but you can subtract something and the path order doesn't make sense. Like the way the Booleans work, it doesn't do it how you'd expect it to. And I tried forever to try and make it happen, and I couldn't make it happen, but it happens to me all the time. So it was hard. But if it does happen and you notice like what
the shape's not closed, maybe?
It's sometimes not closed, but it's usually because, can't see it here, but if you go to layer and you go to paths and you say reverse order, so that reverses the order of how all the different points are set up, and sometimes that just snaps it out of place. So it just depends on how that logic is happening. But it's a nice thing to know because I struggled for the longest time trying to fix something that should be 100% correct. So that's in just the layer menu. And then basic shapes are, you can insert them, but they have nice handy hotkeys on the right-hand side. R-O-U-L are the usually, good ones. Cool. So I'm going to try and go a little bit faster because we're only on C. So with colors, they just pushed out an update. So if I have this color and I want to change the color over here, you can set your global colors, which it means global for all sketch documents, and then document colors will be document-specific colors. So you can set your own palette. But a cool thing now is if you go to this area, it's frequently used colors. So it looks at your document, finds the ones that are used most. So like, hey, this is used 58 times as a fill, or 48 times as text layers and fills. So you can sort of see what's really being used. Another handy thing with colors is this right here, where it says HSB. If you click that, it changes to RGB. The reason why I like to be in HSB, which is hue, saturation, brightness, rather than red, green, and blue, because it's a little bit more natural way of thinking about colors. Because if I want to change the hue of this color, I can go left and scrub this left and right. or the saturation, or the brightness. And that's just how my mind works. My mind doesn't work in RGB. Yeah. Yeah.
You said like you pushed out a new update.
Mhm.
Does it update automatically, or do you have to go to
The App Store,
the App Store and download it?
unless you have it set up to automatically update. Yeah. So if you don't see that little disclosure triangle thing, then you don't have that. Also with the color picker, it's just based on what's happening. And a nice way to access this, because access colors all the time, is with Control and C. It'd be a really nice way to just go over here, click everything, do that. Yeah. Woo. Cool. So that's about colors.
Can I ask a quick color question?
Yeah.
Are you able to somehow affiliate colors with like a variable or a style so that you can potentially say, make a bunch of H1s a certain color and then change that variable so that it changes across the document? Is that something that happens in Sketch?
Yeah. I will, hopefully I'll get to it by S.
That's fine.
But yes.
Did you make that rainbow?
I did make, actually everything in here is, I've made this. This isn't a screenshot. Like I recreated the sketch color picker.
Oh wow.
So everything you see here is, it's already been done. So yeah, so I was figuring like I can then send this out and like, hey, if you just want to mess with this and see everything I did, you can. So duplication, a nice way of duplicating things in like a grid-like manner right here. I'm gonna do circles real quick. Is make grid, and this makes it super easy to tell it like, hey, I want 4 rows that are apart. That's cool. You can do box, and that puts a box around it, sort of, box model. Or you can do the actual element itself, and then boom, easy peasy. Yeah. Another cool thing with this is, let's say,
Can you do that on like group objects too?
yeah, so I can group this. Let's say make a grid, do 3 rows.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it saves a million hours of time.
Especially if you're like doing like components of like a form or like comments or something like that.
Yeah, especially if you already know like exact measurements. So that is duplicate. Export. So when you're done, let's say I'm going to grab this artboard. I want to export this out. The best way is probably just coming over here and pressing make exportable. From here, you can then create multiple export options, so you don't have to do it multiple times. And then you can tell it what the resolution is. So if it's 1x, it's it's like 1800 by 600. It exported out as that. 2x, twice that. 3x, so on and so forth. And it's not in just ones. You can be like 0.25 if you want to, 0.1. And then over here is the suffix. So it would then be like banner e export with like a dash, a hyphen, and then at 3x, at 4x. So that way you can have a consistent naming. And then you can choose the file type. So it is just these 3. Thing to note is with the PDF, it's actually Adobe Illustrator editable PDF. So it can be imported into Illustrator, no problem, and actually work in it. One thing to note though is when you have something that is really complex, it gets really out of hand, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, those are the 6 ways of exporting it out. And a handy way of doing this is if you really quickly were like, oh, I want to get this into a file, you can then just drag this. So it's like sometimes that is all you really need. You don't want to press like 3 buttons. You just want to drag and drop.
So when you drag it, what does it default as?
That's a good question. I think it should be the first one. Let's see. PNG, it is, yep, it's the first one. Yeah.
Another question on that.
Yeah.
So if you're doing mobile stuff, you could like the iPhone 6,
Mhm.
and it gives you the resolution. That resolution's the kind of fake resolution, not like the regular resolution, right?
Yeah.
So then when you're exporting this stuff, you can just leave it as 1x, 2x, 3x. You don't actually have to do any math.
No, yeah, no math involved. Which is good. Also, a cool thing is you can then select multiple things all at once and export them all out at once. So if I'm selecting those 3 elements or those 3 groups, export the TIFF stack, the PDF stack, and then I'd export those 3 out and then choose where I want. Also, there's not just safer web. Just want to condense it a little bit. Cool. How am I doing on time? Oh, yeah. Cool. Filter. So with filter, it's right over here in the bottom of the layers groups pane. And with this, it's how it sounds. You just search for something. So if I say F, filter, cool, I found it. On the right-hand side of that, though, are 2 buttons or toggles. This left one, it shows you or hides layers, not the artboards themselves. So what's cool about that is now I'm only seeing the artboards and not all of my layers, which can get daunting really fast, especially if you have 26 artboards. The one on the right over here are slices. So if I do that, these are the things that I've marked as exportable. So that's a nice way to see what you have and haven't done. Because what happens sometimes is, let's say if you select a group of 5 items and one is not already marked as exportable, you won't probably know that until you hit export. You go to the place you located, exported to, and then you're like, oh, where's that one? And you're like, oh, it didn't know. So it's a nice way to figure out what's happening. So that's filter.
And with slices, you don't actually have to select the slice, it's just the object.
Yeah, it's just
You select, so it's like a layer. Or
it's a layer in artboard with a layer.
Okay.
Or yep, that is it. Groups. So with groups, they're folders. They're exactly how you'd probably think they work. So with slicing, it's if I have a group and I decided to slice that group, it would just export the images in the area that I sliced, because there is, like, making it exportable makes it a slice. But you can come in here and then
so there's like a slice
dictate your own slice. So if you want to get like that, you can get like that.
I've only ever used Edge just through the bottom right export.
Yeah, I hardly ever do that, ever. But I just know it exists, and I've done it once just to see how it works. So with groups, yeah, you just select 1 or 2 items. The easiest way is just Command G. Now you have a group. Hiding. Easy enough. You go over here, you see the eyeball, you click it, it hides it. So if I'm at, oh, it's reverse on the left-hand side. Well, you know what I mean. Importing. So the things that it exports, it can import. And then more than that, just pretty much any bitmap file. So you can't have a PSD or Illustrator or anything like that go into it, but if you can export it out as one of the more common file formats, it can go in.
I was reading something today about SVGs and EPSs, and it said like it had limited. It said it in a really weird way, where it made it sound like yes, you can import them, but you can't see them. Have you done much importing, and
yeah,
have you not had any problems with it? So I almost wondered if the way that they stated it, if it was more of like if you have a really complicated EPS or SVG, it's not going to work, but it's reasonable. It's probably okay.
Yeah, I've only had it with like SVGs that have like 20 gradients on it, stuff like that. That's where it gets just weird. Other than that, I've never really had a problem. Sometimes you have like clipping spaces. It comes within the group. and you just get rid of it. It's just invisible, but that's about it. Yeah. Just if distribute and align. So if I have some text,
It depends how they're created. Because sometimes you'll get like when it generates the SVG, a lot of times it'll like create patterns that it will like put in the definitions block at the top and then like use that pattern throughout the document to become more efficient. But then when it gets imported, something like this, I think that's where things get broken. Yeah.
cool. Thank you. I didn't know the technical side. I just knew sometimes it got weird. So yeah, over here is just how you mess with the text. And then up here are how you align stuff. And what I have set up, it doesn't do it by default, but you can go into your system preferences and I believe just under keyboard and then shortcuts. This is probably the easiest way to create app-specific shortcuts. So I have it set up so when I'm in Sketch, it's the Command Control V and C. That's how I horizontally and vertically align stuff. So I don't have to go up there and do it or right click. It's just I select 2 or more items. Boom. Also another nice one that doesn't relate to justification is paste in place. Is just wherever you have selected, it will place the object that you have on your clipboard right there. Which is very handy because sometimes when you paste something, it just goes somewhere. Yeah.
There's no key command for paste in place.
No, not by default. So that shortcuts menu is a nice way to just add your own.
Is there a use case where you wouldn't want to, like where if you switched it completely with the default paste, it wouldn't make sense?
Yeah, so let's say if I go here to justify, distribute, and align, and I'm coming down here to kiss. And then if I press Control V or Command V, it goes right where I want it to. If I do paste in place, it usually picks the top left-hand corner of the object that you have selected. So, yeah. So keep it simple, stupid. This relates to the whole exporting, SVGs, craziness. Once you send it out and it's like super, like there's a lot of layers and tons of gradients and everything going on. If I export that out and then expect that to work as an EPS or SVG, it's not. So just keep that in mind. But as just like a raster thing, send it out. Cool. Life is fun. Layers. So this is my favorite part, is that you can have an object and then have multiple fill layers or border layers. So I can have this as this orange gradient, but on top of that, I have some noise. But on top of that, I have this radial gradient, put wherever I like. And they all interact with each other, which is nice. And you don't have to have multiple, like in Photoshop, you have multiple layers that do all the same thing. This is just one object with multiple layers contained within itself.
So there's one with patterns too.
Oh yeah, so with patterns, you have global patterns and document-based patterns. And you can tile it or do a fill. And you can add your own if you like. So that's really helpful. The only thing I have to warn you about with the patterns and the noise is when you export it out at more than 1x, it gets just distorted because the patterns don't keep up with it. And then let's say if I get rid of these two, what's nice is they have a garbage can. So when you're like, oh, I don't actually need those anymore, it's really easy to clean that up. Same thing with borders, shadows, inner shadows. Same idea. Maybe multiple. Yeah.
Have you ever had it freeze up on you when you're messing with the stripe pattern?
No, but I just know that there are Sketch has bugs. And
as a young child.
yeah, so sometimes you just find something and you're like, oh, I guess this is a bug. Just work around it until they fix it. They're really good at fixing things and pushing out new stuff, but then some things break. But usually it's not like game breaking stuff. It's just annoyances.
Pros always out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. I didn't know you could have multiple layers like that.
Oh yeah, that's
Multiple
And then if you want to get even, odd, non-zero, how the subpaths, if you have like Boolean and stuff like that, how they all interact with each other. Usually you can just leave it even, odd, and your life will be fine. Mirror, this is the coolest thing. So I know there's a lot of apps that do this in some capacity, where you can just put what you have, like with Scala preview or something like that. This is just natively built into Sketch, but on iOS you have to download a separate app that's about $5. And if you want it, I can give you my affiliate link. So if you buy it, I get about like 20 cents. So what happens is I have it connected with USB. I don't have to do this. It finds it easier. I just have to be on the same Wi-Fi. And then up here, I find Mirror. And over here, it's just a blank screen. And that's my file. You can put in the IP address if that's sometimes easier. And then this is on showing me everything that's on my document. So I have these two set up in the same Sketch file, just on a different page. And I can swipe up to go to different pages. So this is A, another A, because I have it set up differently. Stuff like that. It's really handy when you have, like if you had to do mockups of an iOS app.
So if you were looking at like an iPhone 6 template,
Yeah,
on your or iPhone 5 template and your iPhone 6,
it would scale up and it wouldn't look as nice, but you get an idea. And then if I have time, I can show you a thing I did for like.
To multiple. Like, yeah, like 3 different devices.
Good question. Are you trying to do it? Eric's iPhone. Yep. That is really cool. I can feel like if you have like a meeting, you can like if everyone, a couple people have it, you're like, oh yeah, this feels cool, or this feels wrong.
Go ahead. I'm just kidding.
Cool. So we got that. So when I was talking about pages, this goes right into it. So right over here, this bottom section is like layers and groups. And you have this disclosure triangle thing going on. And I can create new pages from here. So a page, just a collection of artboards. And it's a nice way to group things out. But also it's a performance thing. If you have too many, like right here, I have all 26 things on one page. It gets bogged down pretty easily. So separating things out, if you can, into different pages takes a load off of the processor.
hold on, there's too many things in one artboard.
Too many.
Them out in the pages.
So I can have a bajillion artboards in this one page.
Yeah.
It wouldn't matter. But since they're rough, they're pretty complex, some of them, and just all of it going at once.
Sure.
But breaking it out just helps.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And then obviously, like if you're designing an app or something, you can have like one page that's one screen, and then do multiple versions of it, and then go to the next page, to the next screen, multiple versions of it.
Yeah, it makes sense. I was trying to figure out, was it,
However you want.
do you have artboards instead of pages or pages instead of artboards? But,
Oh yeah, artboards inside pages. And now how I had it set up for the project I did nationwide bureau for like my first week was I just had one page with all of the screens, and then I had other pages above and below it with variations, so that when I did the mirror, I could swipe down and be like, oh, this is what it would look like for an error, or like up, but I'm still within that same vertical.
sure.
That makes sense. Cool. And then pressing the plus button obviously gives you a new thing. Delete. All right. So I've been using lots of keyboard shortcuts and things like that, but I think my favorite one is just the Alt and Option key. So if I have something selected, if I just hold down Alt, it gives me measurements of how far away things are, which is very handy. And I can hold down Alt and nudge this left or right. I want to make sure it's centered, which it won't be because the position, it's not on actual pixels. So
Yeah, what is the measurement scale?
so for the nudging,
Or just like when you hold out, like what are those?
Oh, those are
it's hard
just
for us to see, like what those numbers are.
rounded up to,
Those
pixels.
Mhm.
yeah, change up there.
They're like in pixels.
Yeah.
You're asking.
No.
No.
Not that. If you find out.
Yeah.
So that's a handy one. And if, like Photoshop, if you hold down Alt and move things, you can then duplicate them. It's like that. And if you hold down Shift, not really the option, but that moves it by 10. And then you can actually set how much a nudge is in your preferences, or not your preferences. It's a little bit hacky way, but you can do it. So, plugins. So, I love the plugins that exist. And there's an app called Sketch. All it does is look at GitHub and finds all of the related Sketch plugins. And what bugs me is a lot of them are named Sketch something. So you'll see a lot of like Sketch plugins, Sketch scripts, Sketch. So just that's an annoying factor. But it's really easy. You just hit install. It maintains it in the Sketch plugin folder that exists on your system. And then it updates automatically. Or I don't know if it's automatically, but if you hit that, it definitely does. And it's just a really easy way to find them as well. And my favorite one, I have a couple that I have. I want to get a little bit more, but I haven't had time. Oh, you can see things. So these are my plugins. There's a plugin menu. Color contrast analyzer is pretty nice, just to see if things are accessible. Content generator, though, saves so much time. I can go over here. I'm going to say I want persona. I want user pics. Oh yeah, names. Wait, no. What?
Yeah, persona.
They changed this.
They did. It used to be male and female.
Yeah, it did.
Weird.
User pics. What? Sorry, this was good. No, there it is. No, I don't know what's wrong.
Dude,
Yeah, this is completely different. Sorry, so it updated, and I'm now screwed because I want the old one, so I'll have to get that. But what's cool is, oh, it doesn't even work. Oh my god. No, it broke. Well, I will have to get that. What it did do, it just, if I wanted to fill out like a person that was a guy or girl, it would then just throw in a guy or girl photo randomly. It helped. Or music, scenery, just nice photos. And I didn't really have to do anything and just do that. And then what was nice is there was a run something again. So I would just hit that shortcut all the time until I found the picture I liked. Yeah, crap, that sucks. And you can make your own. It's based off of, I think, JavaScript, but CocoaScript. So it's the same thing, but you have like a little bit of Objective-C layer that accesses some of the Sketch stuff and the Cocoa things. But yeah, so Sketch Toolbox is a nice one. And we're on our way to QuickTime. So another component of the mirror thing I like is with the USB, I'm use QuickTime to mirror my phone screen on my computer screen, which sounds ridiculous because what my phone screen has is what's on Sketch, but it's in the context of that, and I can control it from my phone. So weird as that sounds. So with QuickTime, if you do a new movie recording, which is the opposite of what you think you'd want to do, you'd probably like, oh, I want to do a new screen recording. You do it from here, and then you change this triangle, the camera, to your iPhone 6 or iPhone something. And then whatever I do here goes up there, which is handy for some kind of demos, and you don't have to hook this up to a projector. You have your computer.
Does it work through? Can you do that with my phone too? Or no?
Yeah. Well, no, you would have to be hooked up with USB to use the QuickTime record feature.
You can record it then too.
Yeah. So then you can have a really, really janky demo. But what's also nice is I don't think you can see it. Is that it makes your status bar perfect. It's always 9:41. It's in military time, so that's why there's a 0 and no AM. You got all your cellular connection, Wi-Fi, battery, all 100%, which is really nice.
So you can use that for like anything.
Yeah, so if
Any iPhone.
anything, so if I go here to Safari, so it makes taking screenshots, or if you have to do anything like that, a little bit more consistent. Or do a video, you don't have to worry about like, oh no, it changed from 9:41 to 9:42, and I want to cut the part that was like 3 minutes long in the middle. That sucked. You don't have to do that. So yeah, QuickTime's handy.
Hey, Sean, I just want us to be conscious of the time here.
Yeah.
I know you have it still a lot to cover, so.
I'll speed through the last letters. Rotate. So I'm just gonna go circle. You know what? Oh no, but there's rotate copies. Yeah, so you can say I want. No, I won't do the circle. Yeah, you're good. Close. So I'm gonna say I want 7 more copies, so 8 total, and then I have this nice thing that I can rotate these copies around a circle. So if I want to make this watch face, super easy. You just do that. Cool. So that's rotate. S, symbols and styles, what you were looking at. So I didn't really do too much here, but I created 1 symbol, 2 symbols. Checkbox, so this would be more of a graphical thing, not text-based. But if I'm here, the symbols, you create one and put it in from over here. But if you want to change it, I can change it from on to off, which is nice. And if you notice the naming, checkbox /off, checkbox /on, with that, in the same way with layers, it then knows like, oh, I'm going to create a submenu for you, which is handy. Text though. So if I have this text layer, I can create text styles, and you can create new ones, and those would link through your whole document. It's not sketch globally; it would only be in the sketch file. So that's where everything would be fun. T, terminal. I won't go to that. U, undo. You know this. Z, versions. So this uses the native OS 10 versions. So if you go to File, Revert to, Browse All Versions, you can see every iteration that I have of this, whether I consciously saved it or when it auto-saved it. So I can go to...
You have to have time machine stuff to do this stuff.
Good question. I don't think so. I think that's just a per document thing. I do. No, I don't have time machine set up. So no. And if you notice, like load version, obviously it didn't cache it, but it's from iCloud because I'm using iCloud Drive, so that's cool. But I don't want to restore it. I just want to stay on my current document. So that way you don't have like version 1, version 2, version 3. Window washer. So Command W period. Presentation mode gets rid of all that Chrome left, right, and center. So this is a nice way to present something. Especially if you go over here and then get rid of that and only have artboards. That way, when you hover over something, you don't get those blue highlights. Why? Show pixels. So over here, show pixels. So like this is now vector. So if I go over here, now I see the ugly version. But it's a nice way to go yo-yo between those. I was really stretching that one.
I thought maybe I was the key command code or something.
And there's the layer snaps near its pixel.
Yeah. So there's a preference in general. Pixel fitting. That sort of helps with the whole pixel hinting and everything like that to make things pixel perfect. Then Z is zoom. The cool thing with this, if you press Command 1, 2, and 3, and 4 as well, you get different zoom modes. And so with 2, it centers it and puts it in within the screen. 1 is the whole artboard or whole page, and then I forget what 3 is. It just 3 just centers it. 2 centers and zooms in. Copy size. So that's it. Hopefully I'm 1 minute over. I'm sorry.
It's all right. Very well done.
Yeah,
I learned very much from you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.